Hello and welcome to another AMHC community chat with Healthy You and AMHC, which is Aristic Mental Health Center. And we're so thankful for our partnership with them this month, which is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're trying to bring out these video informational sessions to just kind of highlight some of the resources that are available here in Aristic County and ongoing, not just during our current COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're honored today to have Andrea Chasse, who is a licensed clinical social worker with a -CC. What does that even mean? What is CC?
Clinical conditional.
Okay, and she is a therapist consultant with AMHC, and so she practices mostly in the one-on-one counseling setting. And so welcome, Andrea. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, I am just eager to hear a little bit about what you're seeing in your counseling practice. What kinds of areas, where are people struggling right now? I mean, obviously with mental health, people struggle all the time. And in a pandemic situation such as we're experiencing, I can only imagine it's much more impactful for those who already have that mental health illness in their history and active in their lives. So what are some of the things that we're seeing that people are struggling most with in this time, and why do those things matter?
Sure. I think some of the things that I've been just kind of seeing and just noticing is it's really a lot harder working from home than we kind of thought it would be. And that having a separation between work and personal life and working from home and juggling kids and family and partners, and that it's actually kind of increased the amount of balancing acts that we have to do. And so working from home, you have to think about the separation between, all right, so I've got work from this time to this time, and then I don't leave work and go home, I'm home working. So how can we set up some boundaries as far as being able to say, this is my work day, and then this is my personal life for the rest of the day, and also managing self-care. So I think some things that could be helpful is maybe setting up a workplace in your home that's specifically your workplace, where it's not just in the place where you also rest, or, you know, in your living room or in your bedroom, because there's no other place to close the door. So trying to find a place in your house that can also be the workspace, and you can close the door or walk away, and then you can manage your personal and your family. So it kind of helps to have those separations. I think that also managing the self-care piece and taking the time out of the day to go for a walk and spend some time one-on-one with yourself, just alone, being able to have some of that rejuvenating time, you know. So
I think when people think of self, they think of like, I have to go to a spa, or I have to like go to some organic retreat in the woods somewhere that obviously wouldn't necessarily be easily accessible in this environment. But it really doesn't have to be that complicated. Self-care can be pretty simple, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like making time to go for that walk, or maybe going and doing FaceTime with a friend that you know that lives alone and that you need to reach out to, or maybe you haven't spoken to for a while, taking time to do that. Thinking about different ways of like, hey, I'm going to make time for that, you know, bubble bath, or make that special meal that it seems like we never have time for because we're traveling home from work. So I'll take that extra time and maybe make that special meal that we don't always get to. And things like that kind of help, that put a little bit of investment in that time back into yourself. I think that's really important. And I think that one thing with the COVID is that with the pandemic, we're hearing all of these, you know, these bad news. Like we watch the news a lot. We hear about how the numbers are rising, decreasing, and we are kind of going up and down with our hopes, hoping that things are going to go back to normal. So maybe spending less time watching the news, maybe kind of set some boundaries about, hey, I'm not going to watch this part every single day, or keep it on all day when I'm working from home. Like just set aside time to still be informed, but not be so inundated with it, because that can get us down too. So we're all kind of hoping for us to go back to normal so we can do the things that we love to do. So
I love
yeah.
that you brought up that information overload because, you know, for example, with me and my work, some of us have to be kind of connected to it for work, but even still, it's so vital that we create those boundaries. I mean, there were probably week 2 or 3 and I was like, this is just too much. I need to back up and whoa, I have to pick my sources, make sure it's valid, trustworthy information, and just filter it down to maybe 1, 2, no more, because it was just, I mean, it's everywhere. It's a pervasive issue in our world today, and we're going to see it everywhere we look. Trying to limit it can feel impossible, but it's important for sure.
Definitely. It's that information saturation, and we have it everywhere with our, our technologies. It's so accessible. So I think it is really hard to kind of sometimes set it aside and go for a walk and take your dog for a walk, or, go to, I know that we can't all go to parks and stuff, but maybe just going for walking on the trails, or go to that beach that not a lot of people go to, or things like that to get out.
And I love that you brought up the furry friends. I know you do a lot of work with pet therapy and have seen a lot of good outcomes in that area. How does that help people? Like, how does working with a pet, how is that?
Oh, I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. I think that, our pets, they understand us better than anyone else, I think, sometimes. And they have this unconditional affection and support that's always there. And I think that being able to have that and reminders that you can get comfort from them, and that's hard. It's hard sometimes to get that from different avenues. And so when you have your cat or your dog or whatever pet that you have, a little bunny rabbit, or it's really comforting to have. It actually kind of shows that it kind of gets that physical affection that sometimes we don't always get, and it also helps us to get out of the house, and a reminder that they're cooped up too, and to take them for walks and go for a ride in the car, and let them kind of stick their head out of the window. But yeah, having a pet in therapy and being able to have an animal in therapy is really special. I find that especially if someone's having a difficult time, you can get that comfort from an animal that you really can't get in that moment from someone else. And it's very soothing. It's very, very soothing. And you
Especially
can
right now in this world where we 6 feet apart from everybody, and but you could still have a little loving kitty sitting on your lap, or you snuggle up with your pup and frolic and play outside and do all the things that we might not be able to do because of the physical distancing measures that we're taking right now.
Right, definitely. And then I think it's great for kids, if they like their animals too, and they love to play, kind of gets that extra energy out too, and they can run around with the dog and be able to be outside and enjoy the beautiful sunshine now that we have some. So I think that's great too. Trying to do, if you have extra time as well, being outside, I think that like starting that garden that you've always wanted to, maybe do some gardening in like pots or anything like that gets you outside. So anything that gets you as far as like engaging differently, and it's thinking outside of the box, I think that can be helpful as well. Doing things that we don't necessarily always have time for during the regular crazy work week that we would typically have. So
And
yeah.
even self-care can even include picking up those skills or things that we've always wanted to try but never really had time to learn. So many more things are becoming accessible because of COVID-19 online. You're finding all these professional musicians doing concerts from their living room, or teaching people how to play piano, and everyone's got a master class now. So it's kind of unique that we have these opportunities, but we also, because there's not so much going on outside of our homes, event-wise, we have the ability to kind of take care of ourselves and create a new skill or something that we might develop a real passion for, spend time. I know I love to take pictures, but who has time to just go out and take photography for photography's sake? And so I've had a lot more time to do that in this context. So it's been kind of nice, and I've taken a few little tutorials on how to improve a little bit. And so there's a lot more accessibility to some of those resources, which is nice.
Yep, definitely.
Actually, about another resource for connecting and kind of maintaining some of those relationships, because that can feel tricky in this context. I mean, it's easy to have your pet there at your house, but obviously we can't connect with our friends and sometimes even our family. And my parents live literally across the street, and we're still distanced. And so what are some of these unique ways that you found, and why is that important to stay connected?
Yeah, it is so important to stay connected. It's keeping those relationships going that are really important to you, being able to stay connected to those who may be living alone and may not have as many connections. But some of the things I found is like FaceTiming, doing that either on Facebook. We found this app that Marco Polo, I'm not sure if you heard of it. We talked a little bit about it, but it's great because you can actually record yourself sending a message to a friend, and then they can watch it when they can. So it doesn't have to be a planned, FaceTime session. It can just be, hey, good morning. I was thinking about you. I hope you have a great day. And then when they have a chance, they can go ahead and record their message. So it's not a time constrained thing, and it just takes a couple of minutes. I love it because you can, if it was like a day and I can't remember what we were talking about, you can go back to the previous message and watch it. And so things like that is really helpful. And you can also do it in a group. So I think that's really neat. So you can add, I'm not sure how many people you can add to it, but you can add quite a few, and everyone can be on top of what you're saying and listening. It's really cool. Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I think I've taken away from this whole period of time, I've heard so many people say, you never know, with all of us kind of staying safe at home or, physically distancing, you really don't know what kind of interaction people are getting on a day-to-day basis. And so, when we're out in the community, when we have to be out, I've tried to be so much more deliberate about, even riding in my car. I must look foolish, but I'm like smiling and waving like as cars are coming at me to that person, because it's like you don't know if you're the only face that person is going to see today.
Yeah.
And when you're walking into the grocery store, the little old lady that's walking in next to you, it doesn't hurt to say hi and how are you doing? And that conversation may literally be the only one that person has aside from the cashier as they're checking out the groceries. So as much as we can, find those relationships, even if it's outside of our comfort zone, which, I'm an introvert. And so for me, it is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and I feel foolish, waving like a crazy person, the person at me. And I don't know if they even see me, but if they get home and they're like, that crazy redhead was waving at me, that was so funny. And maybe that's just a little bright spot on their day. And I made that happen. So, finding those ways to connect, no matter how small, and it may feel insignificant, but I mean, if we're in such a hurry that we're just blowing by people who may not get that interaction, it's just sad. We all have the ability to do something.
Sure. And I think that's great. I think that, and connecting with people, asking them to like, hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? I can like swing by and drop it off and leave it on your front porch, and doing things like that. Also, using the more old school snail mail, sending cards or letters or trying that. That could be helpful, and little postcards or things, and that kind of helps. Nothing is more fun, I think, than going out to your mailbox and you get a little postcard or a card from a friend, and it kind of makes you feel like, oh wow, they thought about me, and it can help brighten up your day and that person's day, and so it's just a kind of a different way too. So yeah.
Well, these are all great, but I mean, we have to be realistic. Sometimes people need more than, you know, self-care or boundaries, or sometimes that can feel overwhelming to even begin implementing self-care. You know, if we're caring for a loved one who's got some major health issues and we're at home with them, maybe, you know, we have a child who was getting all kinds of supports, mental health supports at school, and now they're home. So it can feel sometimes very overwhelming to chisel out this time for self-care, or creating these boundaries, or even, you know, staying connected. When you're forced into that connection with someone you're caring for, not in a bad way, but out of responsibility, it can feel like at the end of the day and taking care of that person, you're like, the last thing I want to do is go call more people.
Sure.
So sometimes people need more than what we're able to kind of produce on our own. So what kinds of resources are available right now in our community? And how can people access them through, for example, for AMHC and for some of the counseling that you're doing?
Yeah, well, people can call and actually get an appointment through our Access Center. We have a really great kind of hub where they know who has availability and who can get you in sooner. So they're really good at kind of putting people on our schedule for intakes and things. And so if you're feeling like you need to see someone, or you're feeling kind of down and depressed and anxious, or just needing that connection to be able to talk it out in a safe place, definitely give us a call. And we are seeing people through, so if you're kind of worried about leaving your home, we are seeing people through telehealth, through either Zoom, like what we're doing, or even over the telephone. I've been doing that as well. And I've been seeing some people in the office. So I think that it kind of depends on what your comfort level is and what we're able to. We are definitely trying to see more telehealth as much as we can to kind of help with the traffic in and out of the office. But I have been seeing some people who are kind of saying, hey, Andrea, telehealth, not for me, which is totally okay. And so if that's something that you prefer, to let us know too. But yeah, I think that being able to call, and I think that's a huge step, and it can be really hard, but it is definitely, I feel like it's worth it to be able to talk out some of these things, so you don't feel like you're totally alone, and you be able to have different options to be able to cope. So
For sure. And we'll definitely link up some of those resources and phone numbers in the description for this video. You know, most importantly, if you are feeling overwhelmed, or like you just can't do this on your own, you know, it's not shameful to reach out, and it feel like a giant hurdle, but you know, I've been there, we've all been there, and we're all struggling in this context. So you're not alone, and sometimes we all need a little help. So don't be afraid to reach out if you need some significant help, more than what you're able to kind of muster up on your own. I know a rustic, we had to have that, you know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and just deal with it, you know, and we try and become these little soldiers, but, you know, sometimes soldiers get injured, and we need to take care of ourselves and reach out.
well, one thing to remember too is that in order to take care of other people, you need to make sure that you have gas in the tank too, you know, and taking care of yourself. I know that sometimes people feel a little selfish, or they feel like they're being selfish if they're doing this, or they feel a little guilty because it takes away time from their family or from work or their people that they're caregiving. The other part to think about too is that if we don't take care of ourselves, and how can we help other people, and trying to manage those self-care things. And I think that the other thing to think about too is that coming in for counseling or anything, it doesn't have to be forever. You know, sometimes people come in and it's for a situational thing where it's, you know, I'm going through a hard time right now, but I don't see myself needing this, you know, a year from now, or even 6 months from now. I just need to kind of get through this, you know, a month or two or a month and that's okay too. It doesn't have to be, you know, for the long term. If you know that I just need it for the short term to get through this, that's okay. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's just a little thought there.
Ah, well, this is great stuff. And, you know, and again, I mean, National Mental Health Awareness Month is the perfect time for getting this information out, and it couldn't have been at a more perfect time in what we're dealing with in the world. So I'm thankful that we have some resources available. Thank you so much for these great ideas to implement and try and just make things a priority. And we're not always aware either. So I think even just talking about these things sometimes can generate that awareness, because, you know, we don't know we're letting ourselves go until sometimes we're down in the depths of it, you know? And so recognizing and being aware to keep looking out for those warning signs that maybe we're going on a negative path. So thank you so much. And I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me. It was great seeing you.